What's going on, guys? Running it back with another replay for you, and we're Arbaaling with some elite Khorne units here on Eastern Isle Colony, going up against the literal tides from hell. Just an absolute wave of Bretonnian peasants advancing here. Battle pilgrims, lots of peasant bowmen with the pox arrows. These guys actually have more AP with the fire damage than the fire arrows, which was a little surprising to find out. Obviously, having the poison helps them in debuffing the weapon strength of Khorne's units. We are rolling in here with some Marauders, Chaos Warrior Halberds, Blood Beasts, Marauder Horsemen of Khorne with the throwing axes, and one Skull Cannon out here with Brutes of the Hound of Marauders holding my number 3 objective here, getting some very good shots in early on these Battle Pilgrims. Chipping them down pretty effectively. Skull Cannon's very good at harassing in the early game. Very mobile. My opponent thinking about jumping over here with Henri and the Fay. I just pull back. Questing Knights coming out. I see them. Not too worried about it. I've got a pretty strong force back here, and I bring some Forsaken over just to hang out on the number 3 while I gear up for the fight in the middle. We are going to be going all in here, throwing Arbaal right into the peasant mobs here, and immediately pulling it out while the Marauders get in and get some damage on those guys. Definitely a winning fight for the Marauders, but it's going to take them some time to get through. And the pox arrows are going to be chipping them down all the while, which is going to be pretty cost-effective for the Bretonnians. You can see very even. Obviously not a lot of damage coming in here for either side right now. Fay Enchantress moves in, immediately gets this Mortis online, doing some pretty nice damage, lowering the melee attack also. But we're still doing pretty well in here. Fay taking a little bit of poke from the Halberds, and she's getting as much work as she can get done here. Really good explosion from Arbaal there, actually. The Fury of the Blood God is actually what took half the HP off of this Spearman at Arms. It is an incredible, incredible ability. It does so much damage. We send the Skull Cannon forward with the Blood Beasts and these Chaos Warrior Halberds while we're fighting these Spearmen at Arms, and the Questing Knights are going to move over and start getting into that combat, doing some significant damage. But in the chaos of this big fight in the middle, which my opponent's having a little bit of a hard time with, some throwing axes moving back into the middle of my formation into the rear area of it. I was going to send them around to flank the archers, but some Knights of the Realm came out. I saw them, didn't want to overextend. While this is all kicking off and my opponent's very focused over here, I sneak up the Brutes of the Hound over here. They're getting Berserk charged up. They're tearing into these Battle Pilgrims right now, doing some big damage. These guys have huge weapon strength. They're unbreakable, so their Frenzy is always active. And they are one of the best infantry clearing pieces in the game. Excellent against chaff. That extra little bit of armor. Their high HP pool is actually really nice also. On 100 models, when you've got 10,000 HP, each individual model having over 100 actually makes these guys pretty durable, all things considered. Knights Errant going to get a pretty good charge through the few remaining Battle Pilgrims, so my poor Brutes of the Hound do take a nasty charge, but the Marauders pushing past do attract the attention of my opponent here, and the Brutes of the Hound are going to be following up on the Battle Pilgrims, while the Marauders get on top of one of the pox arrows here, doing some good damage, but taking a nasty charge in the rear from the Bretonnian Cav. Huge damage on me. A little bit of a situation developing in the middle. Some of my Marauders are breaking here. They have routed, but we do intercept the Battle Pilgrims on one side that we're pushing through with some more Blood Beasts that I've brought out. We've got some Forsaken and Chaos Warrior Halberds still holding the line against most of the Bretonnian units here. A few Blood Beasts going to be going down. The Marauders back here not doing horribly. They could be in a better spot, but it was a risky play, and end of the day, I do think it was worth it. And here comes the Sword of Khorne on multiple cavalry units, Questing Knights, Knights of the Realm, and some Battle Pilgrims taking some pretty significant damage from that, with the Chaos Warrior Halberds still in there fighting. And Arbaal finds an opportunity to get on top of the Fay Enchantress and just beats the living hell out of her. No time flat. Huge, huge damage values from him already. 900 damage on Arbaal is pretty juicy for this stage of the game, quite honestly. Marauders getting run over by more cavalry, not going great for me, but the Brutes of the Hound have pushed over. I haven't captured the number 2. There's a handful of these guys that got punted back onto the objective, but my opponent bringing out more knights. But the Brutes of the Hound just hanging in here and continuing to get some really good value. I mean, 920 value, they only cost 1,000 gold, so that's pretty worth it in my book. Halberds fighting with the Skull Cannon, grinding through the Spearmen, just multiple waves of spear units. So many Bretonnian units to have to get through here. But we've done a pretty good job up to this point. Now, Bretonnia does have quite a significant number advantage on the field in terms of units, but we have chased the Fay Enchantress off back here. She actually dies to the throwing axes. They just outright execute her there at close range. Arbaal fighting out here. I use the ability on these peasant mobs just to break them. A little bit of a waste. I'm pretty sure I thought they were battle pilgrims at the time. Wouldn't have used it otherwise. It would have been much better to be able to use on the defenders of Fleur-de-Lis here, but Arbaal's still going to be able to get in here and chip down some of these models. You know, great weapon strength, very good damage output from him. He's just having a whale of a time right now. Henri, however, is not having a very good day. The Minotaurs back here get all over him, wreck him. The Marauder Horsemen throwing axes after cleaning up these few Battle Pilgrims are gonna immediately latch onto him and start chasing him off the field, while we do have our Minotaurs advancing forward, getting on top of these Knights Errant, doing big damage to them. Halberd's so healthy. 200 kills. Not a lot of value, just fighting chaff, but they actually cleared through it shockingly well. I do think this is one of the few matchups where the Chaos Warrior Halberds can be a significant threat to your opponent's army. We finally get on the Pox arrows back here. They have a few volleys left. They've gotten some pretty solid value, especially on this one. The other two not doing nearly as well. They've been harried a little bit. It's been pretty chaotic, and look at this out here, man. Brutes of the Hound, 197 kills and 1,300 value. They are rampaging. I have lost control of them, but they've just been an absolute nightmare for the Bretonnian staff to clear, honestly. They were good for some fat cap pressure, a good distraction for some knight units, and did a little bit of damage in their own right to these Knights Errant, some of the questing knights. We do get charged here, unfortunately, lapsing my micro a little bit, but I've got some Khorne Gores on the way that will be able to help these guys out. Arbaal's spawn here with some decent value, so you can add that onto Arbaal. It's a 200 gold ability. Anytime you can get respectable value out of the spawn is definitely worth it, and you can see them really chewing up these Pox arrows at the end of the game here, while the Skull Cannon, it has taken significant damage. It's mostly been killing chaff up to this point. It's just been really hard to find a good spot for it to sit. The Pox arrows were chewing it up, so I decided it should heal in combat. That can be a good way to mitigate missile fire against these Skull Cannons sometimes. Just commit it to melee. It's very disruptive. Its attack patterns are erratic, so it can make it very difficult for the Pox arrows to find their target adequately. And I think that's why two of these didn't do nearly as well. This other one, I believe, was shooting the Skull Cannon earlier in the game while it was just sitting in the back, and did get some pretty significant damage on it. Arbaal with 1,200 value, man. Fighting some Questing Knights now. Pretty tough combat for them. Questing Knights can do some pretty good damage. We peel the Knights of the Errant with our Khorne Gores, who are going to be moving up to the number 2. Throwing Horsemen, moving around, going to look for some opportunities to get some throwing axes online there. While we do have a throwing axe that I have kind of forgotten about. They chased off Henri, but I'm not really needing them right now. I've got a pretty good handle on the situation here. Arbaal is just tearing through these Questing Knights and Knights Errant. I did use the Fury of the Blood God, which did some pretty significant damage to both of these units. Especially the Questing Knights, because they were blobbed up on Arbaal first and foremost, and it's a really good ability on cavalry. I mean, they typically blob up pretty substantially around your characters as they try to get into combat against them, and that just gave Arbaal all the opportunity in the world to just pop them in the face with that ability. Battle Pilgrims against Khorne Gores with the fire support of my Marauder Horsemen over here, and this is going to be a victory for me, but really well played by my opponent. Bretonnia being a very, very strong like, specialist faction. I don't think they're as bad as people give them credit for. People usually say they're the weakest faction. I think they're one of the weakest, but I do think that maybe High Elves are a little bit rougher to use. Bretonnia is actually okay against the Chaos factions, but this particular instance I think came down to the Fay Enchantress and Henri getting very isolated in the backfield, not really having an answer for the halberds. Maybe mixing in a Blessed Trebuchet would have been a really good idea. They're about 850 gold, I think. They don't do friendly fire, so you can use them to shoot the halberds and get some really good value, because Khorne halberds take pretty nasty damage from artillery since they're so blobbed up. And yeah, I mean, the Blood Beasts were okay. They didn't get great value. The Minotaurs were pretty nasty, though. They're just an absolute nightmare for Bretonnia to deal with. Very high armor values. They can beat most of the knights. The only thing that Minotaurs can't really go toe-to-toe with is Grail Guardians and the Grail Knights. Both of those units, with their high HP per model and just really good charge and shock damage, can usually run over a Mino. But luckily for me, mostly Knights of the Realm, some questing Knights, and Knights Errant. I think the Knights Errant aren't really a good idea against Khorne. Just a little too much armor for them to get great value. You can see they got solid enough work done. I would have really probably focused on bringing in just like maybe the Knights of the Lion-Hearted, or honestly, like I said, a Blessed Field Trebuchet. Like cutting two of these knights and getting one of those trebs into this build definitely would have given me a little bit of a harder time fighting in the front line. Brutes of the Hound with 1400 value. Good value on the throwing axes. They all did pretty decently for how long they were on the field. Forsaken, solid. Khorngors didn't really get a lot done. They were only there at the end of the game. I find them to be a lot stronger towards the later portions of a battle. Just because they can move up and get settled on objectives. And then if your opponent's bringing too much mobility out, there's not a whole lot they can do about it, and if they bring infantry to try and deal with the Khorngors, it's going to take a long time for the infantry to get up on the objectives. You've got plenty of time to summon out answers to, like, foot squires or whatever, you know, your relevant anti-infantry units are, depending on the faction you're going up against, and you can usually bully them around pretty good and protect the Khorngors. You can get amazing value if they get to fight any kind of mobility. They're just so strong right now. But yeah, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed. And I really hope I see Anakin Hathaway with me again. Very cheeky name. Love to see it. And I'll see y'all later. Take care, guys. Peace.